Hey YouTube, Brian LCS. Thanks for stopping by the channel and this video, Comic Book Community 411 with special guest TM Nerdy. So stick around to see the full interview. Hey YouTube, Brian LCS and the Comic Book Community 411. And our special guest is Mr. TM Nerdy. Travis, how are you?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, thanks. I'm trying to think. I'm not sure. I was thinking about it before we got on that I'm not sure if we've been on a live stream together.
I think we might have been randomly on Legion's stream. I think that's where we first met.
Okay.
It was on Legion's stream, and we were both on there at the same time.
Okay. Yeah, I was trying to think. I'm like, I don't recall if we've, and I know you do, a lot of interviews and chatting with the comic book community. You're one of your kind of, standard shows that you do. But I'm trying to think too if I mean, I've seen you on Spine Ticks, and I think you were interviewed maybe one other channel. I'm drawing a blank where, but so that was one of the reasons too. Is like I want to use these shows as a way to get to know a little bit more about the community, and then obviously share it with the community. So it's good to have community members on that I'm maybe not as familiar with or haven't seen on another interview show. So.
Yeah, I've been on quite a few. I was on Team Nerd Herd's Mondo Mail Call, and then I was on Comic Aussie's, where he sat down and asked me a few questions, random questions as well.
Okay, I haven't seen that. I'll have to go back and check that out on Comic Aussie. I've been watching some of his stuff with the recent some of the videos he's been putting out with the big comic book haul that he got. So, but we're not here to talk about anybody else. We're here to talk about you. So why don't we'll start with question one. How did you get into collecting, comic book collecting?
Comic book collecting, I'd have to go back to as soon as the virus hit. Like a lot of people I've met in this community, it's all because of what happened there. It's like it kind of disconnected us, but also connected us together, because a lot of people I know came into this comic community because of the coronavirus. So I really got into comic collecting in that, and it's just more of the fact that I'm into storytelling. I love stories. I was into books, like a lot of reading books like in the past and that. But I love storytelling, and when I'm a big TV goer, so when TV got canceled, I needed to get my fix of storytelling, and that's where comics came in. And I started getting comics, collected editions over at my library, and then I ventured out and tried to find what comic books were, where can I get comic books, what were the best comic books, and then I came across Comics of Bueller, and then it trickled out from there, and then now I'm just immersed into this amazing comic book community.
Yeah, and I had a similar experience. I kind of got back in because of the pandemic and having a little bit more extra time, more time at home. I started going back to the books that I had collected in the 80s and started looking at, what their value was. And I initially came to YouTube to look for how to ship a comic book, because I began selling some of my books and I wanted to make sure I could pack it properly. So where else do you go when you need some information? You come to YouTube. And then I stumbled into the community, and then initially was not collecting, and then very shortly after stumbling in and finding some channels, then I got hooked again, and then started going to LCS and buying books. So it is, and it definitely does seem like there's been a lot of new people over the last 2.5 years that have come back because of, like you said, that the coronavirus and things like that. So tell me about your YouTube
I do
channel.
feel like it is.
Go ahead.
My YouTube channel, that kind of started randomly, and that I just was I was over in everybody's chat, just loving being part of this community. And then I just was like, you know what, I'm going to take it one step forward and be more immersed into this community and start a YouTube channel and see where it goes from there. and then it just trickled out from there. I know, like you mentioned, chatting with the comic community, that started because of Bobby Delegato. And it was just randomly. It wasn't going to be an ongoing show. It was just going to be him and I, because like I got to know him through this community. Him and I sat and like video chatted sometimes, and I was like, you know what? Let's do a show together. I want to get to know you a little bit more, and I want the community to know you a little bit more. So that was the very first episode of Chatting with the Comic Community, and then I loved it so much that it just kind of continued from there.
Okay. Yeah, and I had a similar experience where I started watching videos comic book videos on YouTube, and then um, I said, well, maybe I could create videos. I'm selling books. I'm starting to collect books. Maybe I could make a channel as well, and then it kind of snowballed from there. And I agree with you. I think that's it gets you a little bit closer to the community. Obviously, if you have a channel, because now you have others watching you, and you're watching more, and you're interacting a lot more. So,
and you're invited to people's lives, and you're invited to their shows. Like I invited to your show, and that we're talking for the first time one-on-one. Loving this. Like this, it's a different experience. Like I haven't been this close with people, like in day to day, like in normal day to day, than I am in this community. I feel closer to the people that I've met in this community, and it's just amazing. And also, you can also like look at it as like in 20 years from now, you're going to look back and be like, I chatted with a lot of great people. Or you can look up different channels and be like, I was on their channel, I chatted with them. You can look up and see like I was on this channel. And it's just like a great experience to be able to go back and look at all of the fun we've had and all the great people we've met throughout the years.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, it is, we're documenting the experience, right? So, and it's been a good one. Yeah. I mean, and I agree with you, making the connection. I think, because we have the common bond with collecting, whether it's comic books or toys or, pop figures or cards, we're all kind of collectors. And so that's that instant connection you have with the other person or the larger community. You have that interest. So if you get introduced to somebody for the first time, there's that instant connection.
Yeah. And like I agree, like we all came into this comic community because of comics, but we all have different interests that kind of align as well. Like you mentioned cards, and that there's people that collect cards in this community that are still part of the comic community. There's people that love cartoons. Like I know Roscoe loves his cartoons and that, but he's also part of the comic community. So you get to find out more about their interest beyond the comics.
Right. Yeah, I know. And that's one of the reasons why I like this format, the interview format, and the reason why I wanted to start a series of my own, because understanding, just not what somebody's buying every week at the comic shop, or, the mystery box that they're ripping into, more about the person, and, having that like a deeper connection with the people, understanding. Like I started asking people what, not everybody has their name in their channel, or they don't say their name. So I started asking me, hey, what's your first names? Because I didn't always want to call somebody by their channel name. It's to me, it seems a little impersonal. So I'd rather, know somebody on a first name basis. So, but yeah, I mean, that was one of the reasons why I wanted to have, to do an interview show like this. So what about a character or a comic book? If you could, reboot a series, or, a character, who, what would be your pick, and what would you do with it?
I would say Shadowhawk, but he's actually coming back in August. So, um, it's a little different because like a lot of the stuff that I do enjoy from the past has already been kind of rebooted in a way.
And you're more, I mean, you lean more towards the independent, right? Image, and more, less of the mainstream, Marvel and DC.
I do like my DC. Like I've been wrote DC for a while. I think like I've gone back and I've read a lot of like gone back and read a lot of DC characters in that, and plus all of the cartoon movies and all of the TV shows. And I love my DC more than Marvel, but I have been more towards the indie side of things this past little bit. And like Spawn is still going, Savage Dragon's still going, Shadowhawk is coming back. It's hard to say, but I'd probably, yeah, that's a tough question. Because like Beast Wars too, Beast Wars, I'd be like, yeah, let's bring that back. That's here too. You know what I would do? I'd make a brand new comic book. At the same time as Beast Wars, the cartoon TV show was on, there was a TV show called Reboot. It's also a Canadian show. I'd love if that came to the comic book form. Just like they brought Beast Wars to the comic book form, because like Reboot was another computer-generated cartoon show that actually worked because it was like a computer-generated TV show that was inside like a computer system. Oh, so okay. You had like sprites in that, and it was really cool because you'd like have like they'd use pop culture references from like old movies, old video games, and that because like it was you'd have the Guardian, you'd protect everything. Megabyte was evil, so it was hexadecimal, and then you'd have like this cube that would come in and it'd say incoming game, and then they'd have to fight the user being like somebody that's playing the video game, the computer video game. And it kind of always made me think like, oh, I don't want to beat a video game, because like after you beat the video game and like if the Guardian didn't win in there, if like the game sprites didn't win, it would decimate the whole area as soon as the cube would come up. I was like, oh man, I don't want to beat a video game. But it was amazing. I know there's a few people in this community that remember Reboot, but I would want that into a comic book form. I don't know if that's ever been in comic book form or not, and I'd like it to start off in the beginning, tell us a little bit about the story. But yeah, that would probably be the one thing I would like to create. I like them to create, not kind of reboot, I guess. It would be kind of like them to create.
Yeah, reboot. Transition it from a TV show into a comic book. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. They've done that plenty of times. I've seen them do it with Battlestar Galactica, Eureka. Actually, if you look it up, there's quite a few TV shows that got made into comic books.
I'll have to look. I'm not familiar with Reboot, but I'll have to. That sounds like something I would be interested in, so definitely need to go check that out.
Yeah, don't watch the reboot of Reboot, because they did bring it back, but it's not like the old cartoon. I didn't know.
You got to go to the original.
Yeah.
Okay. What about, so we've kind of covered some, well, actually I have one more comic book related question or community related question. What is your biggest complaint about the comic book community or collecting, or, one thing that you don't really care for within the hobby?
Within the hobby, I would have to say like sometimes the price of comic books is kind of a little bit high, especially for like some of the comics that you want to get. Like that's why I love Image. I love Todd. Like he keeps them at a fair, decent price with the cover quality still being amazingly great. And like even with Saga, they're still doing that with Saga. They're keeping it at a $2.99 price point. But like to get a good cover from DC, you'd have to pay an extra $1 to get a hardcover. And then with Marvel, you get just crappy paper quality all around you, especially with the covers. So I'd have to say the price of comics is like, it's not worth, especially for Marvel, it's not worth the price that we're paying. Especially over here in Canada, we pay a little bit higher.
No, and I've noticed that with Marvel over the last, 4 or 5 months, their quality, you can see it. I'm at the comic book shop picking up a new book, and you can see the waviness in the cover because the paper quality is so thin. And so, yeah, it makes it tough to pick up that book, or I mean, even handling the book, reading the book. I feel like it's very Marvel anyway is very flimsy, and so, and to your point, right? Image is keeping the cost down, but still giving the quality, so it can be done. Marvel is not choosing to do that. So,
and it's not just like saying like, oh, Todd's just doing it, but it's not just Todd. Like Saga is continuing at that $2.99 price point. So, and who knows, there could be more comics coming that are going to stick to that $2.99 price point. You never know.
Yeah, no, and I think it's good to be able to keep the price point low because you want to be able to get more people into the hobby, and so keeping it reasonably priced, may do that. So, yeah, no, that's a good point.
Yeah, because like I like DC comics, and like I do pick up Robin. I love that series. I do pick up all the Derek Chew variants for Harley Quinn because I'm a huge Derek Chew fan.
Okay.
For cover artist, I end up loving the story as well. And then there's a ton more like Batman Beyond, the White Knight, and that. So, but it's like $6 for us over here in Canada to pick up a good quality cover for that series, or the cover that we want most times. So it's never like $3.99 for us. It's usually like $4.99 or sometimes $5.47.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I noticed that with DC's. I know for the card stock covers, the heavier cover, that it's $1 more. Yeah. So, yeah, and it makes you kind of think, if you're heavy DC too, if you're picking up mainly DC titles, then, if you're paying $1 more per copy per issue, then that may cut into the total number of books that you buy. If you're trying to stick to a particular budget. So, yeah, no, that's a good one. That's
exactly.
That's a good answer. All right, so we've covered the comic book questions that I've had. So now the last two questions are going to be random. So kind of random things about could be life or other things besides comics. So my first question for you is, what is an item or items that are on your bucket list?
Items that are on my bucket list. Few here. Like I do eventually like want to go. Like I've never been to a Comic-Con, so I eventually want to go to a Comic-Con and meet up with a lot of people in this community, especially like people Neighbor to the North, Actual Dracula, Newbie, and the Comic Vet, and everybody else that I've met in Canada here throughout this amazing community. I'd like to meet up with them like at a Comic-Con, or just meet up with them and so I guess that would be kind of two things: meet up with some community members and go to an actual con. So, okay. But other than that, I do want to eventually go to the States as well. Preferably like New York, because like then I could go like watch the New York Yankees, or I can go to Midtown. I could go like I do want to eventually go to a musical. So I guess I'll give you a lot of bucket list answers.
There's quite a long list, right? Yeah, well, so, New York City, you can check off a bunch of different things, right? Because there's plenty to do. Between Broadway and you have the sports teams, like I said, you've got Midtown Comics, a big comic shop, all the sightseeing that you can do. So yeah, New York City is a pretty good location to check off a bunch of things. And
then like I'd have to say like meet Kevin Smith would be one of the things. Like I love Kevin Smith. Like he does like. A lot of people know that he's on YouTube every week, most times for Fat Man Beyond. So he's live as well. So, and JD was just there not too long ago. I'd like to meet Kevin Smith and like even Jason Lee. Jason Lee, he was like in a lot of Kevin Smith movies. He was My Name is Earl. I'd like to meet him as well. So yeah, quite a few bucket list items that I'd like to do.
Now, Kevin used to run a film festival like that he would put on of all his different movies. I actually had a coworker that attended. It was in, New Jersey, but I'm not sure if that's something he still does. I'm probably sure with the pandemic and things, it's probably, if he was doing it, it's probably was put on hold for a period of time.
I think it was put on hold for a period of time because like even the show Fat Man Beyond was like it was at the Scum and Villainy Cantina in Hollywood. And then they moved it to, they were just in separate places and kind of did this thing that we're doing. So I think he was not able to go back and forth to New Jersey because he lives in LA. So I think that was put on hold. And then he started this whole film school thing, YouTube podcast that he puts out weekly as well. And he talks to different film creators. So I think that's the makeup for like the film festival.
Okay. And I want to let you know that one of my, so I play fantasy football, and my team was named Team Snoochie Boochies for like 5 years.
Nice.
I was a big Clerks fan. I've seen that movie a ton of times, when it first came out. So, yeah, I enjoy Kevin Smith's work too. So,
are you excited for Clerks 3?
I haven't heard much about it, but yeah, no, it'd be interesting to see where, see how the cast has aged.
And then Kevin Smith also has his whole deal with Dark Horse where he's going to be releasing a couple of comic books through publishing. One's going to be characters from the View Askew universe, so like people from Clerks, Mallrats, Chasing Amy, and that. Okay. So little side stories of that, like little anthology stories. And then another one's a horror story. I'm not too sure about the whole details on that one, but yeah, it's more news coming soon from that, I think.
Okay, that'll be interesting. I'll have to be on the lookout for that. So your last question is going to be a truly random question. The last question, I give the guest an option to, present a question that they would like asked, or if they don't, I have a list of 50 questions. So I need you to just give me a number 1 through 50, and whatever number you pick, that'll be the question.
Let's go with 32.
32. Okay. So what is the best and worst piece of advice you've ever received?
Best and worst. Well, like, I can give you an answer for both. It's just like, just do it. Just do it. Because like, or just like somebody giving me the push to do something. Like, they're just like, just forget, clear your head and just go for it. Just go for it. Because there's been a time where it didn't work out for me and like I literally broke my ankle. And then there's other times where now I'm in this comic community. So like so it was best advice and the worst advice because one's drunk at a party, the other's actually good advice that got me into this comic community.
Okay. That's interesting that, I guess depending on the situation, right? It could be, like you said, it could be good advice or bad advice. So, all right. So what about, those were the questions that I had for you, but why don't you tell me a little bit about what you got coming up on your channel or, what's on the horizon for TM Nerdy?
Well, we talked a little bit about Kevin Smith. We'll be over on Neighbor to the North's channel. There's a crew of us that get together, like me, myself, Evil Mike, JD, that's Raging Cajun, Tylox the Mighty, and Neighbor to the North, that's Brett. We all get together and do Let's Talk Kevin Smith. And this week, this Friday, it's going to be over on Neighbor to the North's channel. He doesn't have a lot of subscribers over on his channel, and that's a come on over and give him a sub up. And this Wednesday for Chatting with the Comic Community, it is my 50th episode, and I have Comics with Bueller Travis.
Oh, wow. Okay.
So I had an amazing time having a conversation with him. He was on the Bueller bus, so you get to see the Bueller bus as well in all its glory.
Nice.
And then every Friday I have my top five most anticipated comics coming out the next week, and then Spine Ticks every Saturday night.
How do you? So I'm assuming Sunday mornings, or Sunday is a day where you just rest after a marathon of spine ticks.
Yeah, it is. It's like a day that I usually rest, and if like let's say I have any TV shows I need to get caught up on, that's the day that I do it. I just kind of like rest and just take it easy. Sad thing is, Spine Ticks is getting shorter now, so it's more time that I'm usually up during the day. But other than that, I always try to catch Comics Will Break Your Heart, Jennifer and Maris. I always try to jump in their chat and see what they're doing. But other than that, I always try to catch up on some good TV like Severance. I don't know if anybody's watched Severance, but Severance is a fantastic show. It just ended up.
No, not one that's on my radar. It's funny because I'm spending less time now that I have a YouTube channel. I'm spending less time watching traditional shows and watching more YouTube. So
I feel myself doing that too, but I always make time because like I love talking about TV. I love talking about different little comics and that. So I know Phil, Comics Talk Weekly, and Evil Mike are both watching Severance. It's a little harder to get because like there is a lot of great TV shows out there, but there's a lot of different platforms. Because like Severance is on Apple TV, and not a lot of people have Apple TV.
Okay. Yeah. No. Yeah. I mean, that's the other catch of it, right? All the different services that are available, and trying to catch all of the the good shows on each of them. Yeah, it can be costly if you have subscribing to all of the different services. So.
Yeah, and it's just like Halo too. Halo is on Paramount Plus, and like that's why I feel like that's why not a lot of people are talking about Halo. And it's funny too because I've never played the games, never knew the story behind it. Then you have somebody like Mike who played the games, knows the story in that. So him and I have been just talking one-on-one, like not going live or anything, and like saying what we think about it. And I've been enjoying it, and he's been enjoying it. So all you Halo fans, watch Halo because you guys definitely enjoy it. And all you people that do not know anything about Halo, you guys can just watch it, and you guys will be able to just jump right in.
Oh, that's good to know. I have played Halo, and so I know a little bit of the backstory. And I think, generally as like a pop culture, I think Master Chief, whether you've played Halo or not, I think you probably have come across Master Chief at one point in some context.
Yeah, and I think like the graphics in it are just so insanely great, and it just looks all around fantastic. So they're only 3 episodes in, but like for those who are iffy on watching it, I definitely watch episode 1. If you're not hooked after that, then I don't think you will be.
Okay. Another good record. You're giving me homework. You're giving me shows to go look up, shows to watch. So, but I want to thank you. I appreciate you coming on the show and spending some time with me. And it's great to get to know you a little bit better. Link for your channel is going to be down below. So if whoever's watching and you're not subbed up to Travis, please go check out his channel. He does some great content. And yeah, he's got Bueller coming on. That's going to be must watch. I've been following him, Bueller, on the bus and some of the Instagram videos, and it's just fascinating that somebody's built a bus and now traveling across the country to go visit comic shops and things like that. So it's good to kind of ride shotgun with him on his adventure. So definitely looking forward to that interview.
Thank you so much for having me and asking amazing questions. And everybody that's tuning in and watching this, thank you guys for stopping by.
All right. Well, thanks, guys. We'll see you next week with our next episode. Station.
Bye, everyone.